Hi and welcome to today's video. My name is Rita. Welcome back to my channel, or welcome here for the first time. I was inspired to film this video because Angelica Nyquist just put up a video about her 10 favourite mini palettes. I love mini palettes. I think things being good for travel is important and very helpful, and mini palettes can just be easier to use as well, because maybe there's one or two clear looks you can do with those colours and they kind of present it to you. So I really enjoy mini eyeshadow palettes. So we're going to talk about my 10 favourites today. Now I'm going to mention more than 10 palettes because in some of them I'll mention another colour story that same format of palette comes in. So I'm not sure if I will rank this. I might rank this as I go actually, and that should be fun. So my top favourite is 100% the Zoeva Soft Sun Voyager palette. So I will talk about palettes that are still available today. This one unfortunately is not. It has been discontinued. It's just the best thing ever. I got it in TK Maxx and then I kept it for months, or like a month or two, and then put it in my sock at Christmas. And I just love it so much. This has definitely more than one look you can do. You could do an all warm tone look, you can do a fun look, you could use every shade in one look, you can do something fun with the reds on the outer corner, things like that. But you can also do a cool tone look with pinks. This pink shimmer is not just pink though, it really is this beautiful kind of iridescent pink, but if you don't use the matte pink it looks more neutral. Phenomenal shine. I adore this. I love the format, I love the colour story, I love the quality. I think these shadows are just the best ever, and this is my favourite eyeshadow palette completely. If there was a full size of this I would want it. I love this, but the mini version is great, and I don't use it too much because I'm afraid of using it up, which is ridiculous because I know it takes a very long time to pan eyeshadow, but I absolutely love it. It's my tippy top favourite. Unfortunately, it isn't available. However, there are two mini palettes currently available from Zoeva, two travel palettes. One of them is the Together We Grow, which I don't have. One of them is the Together We Shine palette. And this is a lovely like rosy neutral palette. This one has a mirror, which the Soft Sun doesn't, and it's really nice. Again, the quality is lovely, but these are more, you know, standard shimmers. You don't have this kind of special shifty shade. So I would recommend that one still if you would like a mini palette from Zoeva, because it is very good. So next up, my second favourite is the Natasha Denona Mini Retro. This palette is so beautiful, so flattering. I have a cool undertone, so you know it might be more flattering on me, particularly flattering on me because it is a cool tone palette. But this pink shimmer is just the best, Galaxia. So there it is beside the, it's too sunny really to show these shimmers. Yeah, you can see that a bit better. So there is Galaxia here and the Zoeva shimmer there, so they're actually quite similar, but I love this. Every shade is beautiful. You can use all of them together, but obviously you can do an all green look or an all pink look either, and I just really love it. The format of these palettes is so good, the quality is wonderful, and lots of the colour stories are fun and really nice and easy to use. So I highly recommend the Mini Retro. There's allegedly a shimmer in the full size or the Midi Retro with this same formula, but it's not the exact same shade. I wish it had been the exact same because this one is better than the one in the Midi Retro. I do want to mention a second Natasha Denona mini palette, which is my second favourite of hers, but it doesn't count in my overall ranking, because I would have more than 10 then, and it is the Natasha Denona Mini Gold. And again, as you can tell, I love a shimmer. This shimmer is the reason I love it. D'Or, just gold in French, so beautiful. This is excellent. Again, you could do an all green look if you want, but generally I use these three, this matte, only occasionally this because I have very pale skin and I often don't bother doing much on my outer corner. This is not what I'm wearing today. I'm wearing a different green, which is the shimmer from the Pat McGrath Sublime, Sublime, Extacy Sublime, so this mini palette does not make it into my rankings, doesn't make it into my top 10. I hate the packaging, or I don't love the packaging. The packaging is not good enough for it being Pat McGrath. And then I'm wearing a non-mini palette, which is the BH Cosmetic Smitten in Switzerland for the mattes and the darker green shimmer on the outer corner. But I wanted to film this today, and often if I wear a green eyeshadow, it is the mini gold. That would be my favourite green eyeshadow look, or of course the like very taupey greens from the mini retro. So talking a lot about green today, which is not a favourite colour of mine. My next favourite, I would say, is the Catrice X Jenny palette. So I think this is mostly not available, like it's mostly sold out now, but I will see if it's still available. I got mine on Just My Look, so it might still be available there. And the reason I love this is this duochrome offshore, which you can see it's going like pink to green, and it is just stunning. And to have that in a mini palette, I think is really special, because obviously lots of mini palettes are pretty standard nudes, which I have a few of those. I think it's great to have this, which has 2 standard shimmers, 3 very usable mattes, and a special shimmer. And I think that's a great combo in a mini palette, because, you know, if you're traveling, if you're going on a trip and you're doing something special and you want a special look one day, that shimmer would be perfect. And then if you want more standard, you know, run-of-the-mill everyday eyeshadow looks the rest of the time, the rest of the palette is great and really stands up on its own. But that special shade adds something to it, something really great to it. And I like the packaging. This packaging is a bit bulkier than I would prefer, but I get it, and I think the hard plastic would probably snap if it was in very thin pieces, so I'd say they kind of had to make it this size. So I'd prefer if it were a little smaller, but I think it looks great, and that is helpful. So that's really a stand on its own palette, and I have a lot of those, but I also have some accompanying palettes which are just shimmers, so I'll talk about one of those next. So this is number 4, is my Bobbi Brown Pink Glow Luxe eyeshadow palette, and these are these special shimmers. So what are they called? I think they're called like Gilet something, and even the shade names, like one of them is called Metal Rose. And obviously you've got the luxury packaging, you've got a big mirror, and you've got these phenomenal shimmers. They're really more like toppers, but they are a beautiful accompaniment to, you know, just make any look a little bit more special. And I really like them. That was a very expensive palette, like much more expensive than any of the others, including Natasha Denona, but it's something special, and I think, you know, it works well. My next favourite is the e.l.f. Bite Size formula. So I'm going to talk about 2 of them. My favourite is definitely Cream and Sugar, and again, I love shimmers. It is because of the shimmers. Now the mattes are grand, and in this, for me, this is grand colour story. I know some people say there's no transition shade in this, but just dip your brush in this, then in this, then back in this, or if you have deeper skin tone than me, in this, then back in this, and you can make your own transition shade. And having the 2 shimmers, I think, works really well. So I will swatch those up here, and these are really high shine. So it's these 2 here, really high shine shimmers that I think are extremely beautiful. Now, I've mentioned this many times before, but the formula on these has definitely degraded over time. Mine are like nearly 3 years old, or I'm not sure if that's accurate. They're as old as when they were released, and they say they only last 12 months, and definitely the formula is not what it used to be, but still a favourite. And then I do want to just mention Truffles, because this taupe shade is something special. Swatch it down here next to, there it is, next to the shade from the Catrice palette. It's really gorgeous, and if you're going for a cool tone, more dramatic mini palette, I think this really stands up to scrutiny and is very beautiful. And obviously you've only got one shimmer in that. Generally I would go for shimmer heavy palettes because shimmers are my favourite, but if you're more into mattes, that might be one to consider. Next up, this is getting hard now to decide what's my favourite. Next up, I'll go for a very similar idea to the e.l.f, which is the Catrice 5 in a box. My favourite is definitely 010 Golden Nude look. And obviously the layout, etc. is inspired by the Natasha Denona format. And this would be kind of equivalent to the Natasha Denona Mini Nude. I might do actually a swatch comparison between the two, so you can see, because I do have the Mini Nude. It didn't make it into my top 10 because I haven't really used it enough for it to be a favourite. You've got a light shimmer, a deep shimmer, quite like the light shimmer, or sorry, not deep, mid-tone shimmer, light shimmer, mid-tone shimmer from the e.l.f palette, the e.l.f Cream and Sugar palette. And this is just essentially the perfect take 5 minutes to do a very simple neutral eye look palette. And it's so easy to use. The formula is great. The packaging is so slim and beautiful, and just throw it in your makeup bag. You know, it feels good enough to not be bashed around too much. So that is definitely my favourite. I like a lot of the colour stories that it comes in. I did want to just mention the newest one, which is 070 Elegant Khaki look. And you can see this is obviously specifically inspired by the Natasha Denona Mini Retro. Not a perfect dupe, and I think they're probably trying to, I don't know, not get sued or whatever, but the Mini Retro has these really taupey greens, and then the khaki one, the Catrice, has this more khaki matte green, and that's the only green it has. So you can't really do a green look. You could do a green and gold look on its own, and then the pink and the neutrals maybe aren't part of that, and then you could do an all pink look, but it really would be very neutral because the shimmer is neutral. Or you can use them all together, which I have a little reel on Instagram where I used them all together. But yeah, I just want to mention that because it is the newest one. And I think the quality is grand. If you like the colour story, why not? Because these palettes are like $4.50 or something like that. It depends exactly where you get them. And I think that's only available in Europe. Maybe it'll come to the US. I don't know. Next up, I've got the Essence, and this is much bigger than some of the others. Essence Coffee to Glow. So this is a warm neutral palette inspired by Huda Beauty, because you've got this sticky weird shade here. It's just really high quality. It's really nice. It's really easy to use. And this shade is just a bit special. It's a bit like creamy and weird. And it's just this beautiful rose goldy kind of thing. The colour's kind of blown out. But I will do swatches of all of these palettes later, so hopefully I'll be able to get decent light for those. I love the format of this. So they have, Essence has one other palette in this format, which is the Jurassic Park one. I haven't gotten that because I don't think I'd love all the colours. I know the lighting is better. Let me see if you can see there. So yeah, that last rose goldy shimmer is the kind of special shade from this. I haven't got the Jurassic Park one because I didn't think I'd love all the colours. I really want it though, because it has little dinosaur footprints as imprints in some of the shades. That's so cute. But I think this packaging is excellent, you know, really small, and like if you compare it to the Catrice that I said was a bit big, it's much shorter than that. this only has 6 shades. This is 8 shades. So this is what I want in terms of, you know, I have a lot of eyeshadow. I'm not going to use them up. I don't need a huge quantity. How many grams are in this? Does it say? Oh yeah. Only 5.6 grams. So quite a small quantity, but that works for me. It's an affordable brand that suits me down to the ground. And I think this packaging is just so beautiful with the foiled thing and then the cardboard. So like the next one I'll go with is another kind of full palette like the Essence, and this is from the Russian brand Sigil, inspired by Tanuka, and it's the lovely voice of a humble bird. This format is genius. So this palette is a literal mini version of a full-size palette that you can buy from them. You can buy it full size with I think like 26mm pans, £10 palette, or you can buy kind of half full sized, which is 5 of the shades, half of the colour story with big pans, or the other half of the colour story with big pans, or you can buy the full colour story with mini pans. And I think this is something Sigil does for all of their palettes. You've got this beautiful illustration of a bird. The packaging that this palette arrived in was just incredible. I have a reel of it on Instagram. I might be able to, I don't know if I still have that footage, or I have a picture of the beautiful packaging it arrived in. And I ticked to not get like extra gift wrapping. So I can only imagine people who tick to get extra gift wrapping, how beautiful it is. So this is this phenomenal cool toned palette. I just thought was the most beautiful thing, and I really wanted it, so I got it. Now being able to get a tiny version of something is the dream, because I want a huge variety. I want to be able to play with whatever colours I like whenever the mood strikes me, but I don't need a huge quantity that's going to expire. So getting a teeny tiny version of the palette is genius. Obviously can't order from them at the minute, but maybe in the future, or maybe you already have a palette from them. So next up is this Catrice palette, Kaviar Gauche, and obviously it just really reminds me of the Charlotte Tilbury quads. You can't lay it flat, which drives me insane. That's as far back as it goes. Really annoying. It's just these really standard neutrals, standard rosy neutrals, but I think they're really beautiful. Let me see, can I swatch these with fingers? I haven't gotten so. Here we go, just rosy neutrals, really easy to use, cute packaging, and really flattering. Obviously it might not work for every skin tone, works for me, and this doesn't have a shade I don't use. A huge number of palettes, like say one of the reasons that the Natasha Denona Mini Gold isn't my favourite in comparison to the Mini Retro is this shade here. This deep green, perfectly usable, perfectly lovely. It's just not something I use very often at all, and if I do use it, it is the tiniest bit in the outer corner because I have such pale skin. So things like that, even in a 5-pan, there's a shade I don't really use, whereas in this I use every shade and I love every shade and they're all beautiful. Now you get the same look every time. This is nothing magical. It's just so usable and easy, and for me that's the part of the appeal of a mini palette, is just you can just get out the door quickly because you're not looking at a big palette, scratching your head thinking, oh, do I want to go this way? Do I want to go that way? What's going on? Like today, using the Smitten in Switzerland palette, I had to think a bit, you know, what shades did I want to use? And then I decided I was going to go for the greens. I was going to pull in the McGrath palette, and I used a bunch of the neutrals as well to set things up. So that just took a bit more work. Now, I love my look. I'm very happy with that. It wasn't difficult, but it took longer than if I was in a rush to get out the door, pulled this out. There's no decision time involved. I just bang all of these shades on my lid and it's fine. You don't really need this very light matte here. You don't really need it. They could have stuck in a darker brown there to make it more versatile for a few more skin tones. Number 10 spot goes to this quad from Roen. So again, this is a very expensive palette, and it is not necessarily an easy use it on its own setup. It's more like the Bobbi Brown, an accompanying palette, and really special shimmers is what you get with this one. So I'll swatch just one of them for you now, and I'll swatch them all later. This here, like, high shine, sparkle, really beautiful. You've got a few different formulae in here, but they are all shimmers. I love the format. Tilts all the way back. You've got a mirror. Feels sturdy enough. I would prefer if you could tell from looking at the front which one is which, because I also have the 75 degrees palette. This is the 11. They have a sticker on the back. If the front were a little different, it would be easier to tell them apart, which would be lovely. Other than that, can't complain about it. It's beautiful. I really like it. And I love, like, in particular, these, like, neutral, cool leaning, a little bit of pink shades are just something that I love. Look at all these swatches. Ah, gorgeous. Absolutely gorgeous. And you can even see there the Roen in comparison to some of the other shimmers. It is special. It's beautiful. So I love all of those 10 mini palettes. I will just mention a few that don't make it into my top 10, but I think are mentioning particularly the format of them. So one is these mini palettes from Essence. I think they're great quality. I think the format is literally perfect. The mirror can stand at any angle you want and hold itself up. There is a mirror that's actually usable because it is the full size of the thing and it's clear and good. 6 shades. Some of the colour stories are more usable than others. I haven't used this even once. I have only borrowed my sister's version of this palette, and that's what inspired me to buy my own. Bronzed this way I've used a bit more. I like to mauve it, but I haven't used any of them enough to call them a favourite. So I just wanted to mention this format of mini palettes I think is very good. And then another top one are these palettes from Viseart. So this is the Viseart Paris edit, which I really, really love. 3 shades arrived broken, and some of them were repressed back together, and then I got a full refund, and then I bought the Viseart Mini Spritz, or Viseart Spritz edit with that, which I also love, and they are phenomenal. And if you're looking for a tiny full palette, this is the way to go. You know, you get your 12 shades and they are the same size as the Zoeva palettes, basically, where you only get 6 shades. So, very good format, definitely worth considering. I am going to be travelling at the end of the month. Usually I might bring, you know, 1 or 2 mini palettes. I think probably I will bring this one because it is in my 5x5 project that I'm doing this month, where I'm trying to use 5 eyeshadow palettes 5 times, and it is the smallest one. But if I've used that one enough and I am running out of days to use the other palettes, I might wind up having to take a bigger palette on this trip. But c'est la vie. Taking one medium-sized palette is fine. I don't really like, I don't have any of the big Be Perfect palettes or whatever. I don't have any of these enormous fill your whole table palettes. So all of my palettes are relatively travel friendly, but definitely these mini palettes take the cake and are my favourite. It is more than 10 because they're special and they deserve it, and you know, some of them are discontinued and you can get alternatives within the same format from the same brand. So I wish there were even more mini eyeshadow palettes available, because I think a lot of you are like me and have too many eyeshadow palettes already. It's definitely the makeup item I am drawn to the most. So, and I don't feel bad about adding more mini palettes to my collection. Actually, in my makeup inventory, oh god, the lighting is changing dramatically. In my makeup inventory spreadsheet, I have full-size palettes and mini palettes separated out, and I just don't feel bad about having a bunch of mini palettes, and I do feel kind of bad about having a bunch of full-size palettes that I'm not getting as much use out of because I have too much. I don't feel that way about the mini palettes, so those are my thoughts on mini eyeshadow palettes. Tell me about your favourites down below, and I will see you in the next video. Bye! I just love eyeshadow swatches. They're my favourite thing.